Do you play chess? Have you ever blundered? Don't lie. Come on. We've all blundered. We're all human. You get mad when you do it, but then in hindsight, it's goofy. It's funny. You're like, wow, I'm so dumb. How am I this dumb? But luckily for us, grandmasters also blunder. So today we're going to be looking at the 3 most tragic grandmaster blunders of all time. 3 games will be completed in 30 moves. So they average out to 10 moves a game, which is ridiculous. I mean, imagine how they felt. And I bet nowadays they look back and laugh. But human error is what makes chess beautiful, right? It's human error. You don't want to see perfection. You want to see imperfection, confusion, calculation, and then you want to see a winner and a loser, right? No participation trophies. So game 1 is going to be Ready versus Tartakower. What opening are we going to get? We're going to get the Caro-Kann. Usually I go off in tangents on opening theory, but we're going to try not to do that today. So we get this line. Now there's bishop f5, bishop f6. Bishop f5 used to be the main line. Now the Tartakower is more common. We get a Tartakower actually, even though this game was played in the year 1910. Let me not forget about that. Okay, queen to d3 is a fascinating move. Blocks in the bishop, but it does guard the knight. Black strikes with pawn to e5, and both of these players have many opening creations named after them. So yeah, they're pretty profound in the chess world, I would say, in the year 1910. So d takes e5, we get queen a5 check, right? That is a fork, but it helps white develop. So what did black miss? Because he had a plan over here. He was a grandmaster. He's aiming at b2. He's aiming twice at the knight, but white's like, okay, take my knight. And he did. Why is this a mistake? Well, try to find mate in 3 here. The first move is queen to d8. The king has to take. And then another forcing move is bishop to g5. Boom, double check. The king has to come to c7. And what is the mate? If you made it this far, I know you see it. Bishop to d8. Checkmate in 1. So, yeah, Ready probably got a good night's sleep that night. Tartakower, probably not. All right, game number 2. We're going in chronological order. We got Zapata versus Anand. I believe the year is 1988, and we get a Petrov defense featured in Wesley So versus Magnus 2 days ago, if you guys saw it. So a lot of the time we get knight takes, queen e2, queen e7 is what Wesley played, and then Magnus played essentially a perfect game, but it's a line. d6 is also a line, not taking the pawn just yet, but kicking out the knight, blocking in the dark squared bishop, but opening up the light squared bishop. We get knight to f3, now we get knight takes pawn, and knight to c3. It's kind of like a Stafford gambit without giving up a pawn. So just a Stafford. So typically black goes knight takes c3. I guess Anand mixed up his lines and played bishop to f5, and you're losing already. So it is move 5, and Anand is losing. The legend Anand, who put India on the map, great mentor to the younger generation, and yeah, he's losing on move 5. So if you blunder a fork, don't beat yourself up on it. Queen to e2, pinning the knight to the king. So typically, these pins are okay in the Petrov. You go queen e7, we get a trade, but this is not that type of position, right? So if d5, we get d3. So why not just queen e7? Well, what he forgot about was the move knight to d5. You see, and now if the queen moves because it needs to guard c7, you just go d3, and whether they attack you or not, you could just take the knight, and you're going to win a piece, and then you're going to win the game. So he put respect on the game, and he said, I resign. So that's game number 2. Game number 3 is Dmitry Andreikin versus Sergei Karyakin. This is my favorite. We discussed Karyakin in the last video. This is not going to be the Russian School of Chess by Karyakin, that is. So we get in English. We get a reverse Sicilian. By the way, you know what is fascinating? This is pretty fascinating, playing for f5. I'm liking this for black right now against the English. But like we said, it is not a repertoire video. It is a tragic comedies video. So in this game, we still get the reverse Sicilian. Okay, knight to c6, knight to f3, aiming at the pawn, g6, and striking with d4. This is all mainline stuff. However, here, Andreikin, rather than taking the pawn and we get bishop g7 and we get a normal game, he went knight to d5, which is quite a dubious move, actually. But, you know, Dubious moves need to be known. Bishop to g7, only move for advantage. Bishop to g5. And here you need to know this line because the only move for an advantage is knight c to e7, which I don't think anybody plays nonchalantly. I think you got to really know your stuff. And Karyakin didn't. I don't know if he forgot. I don't know if he never saw this line, but I bet he knows this line now. Knight g to e7. And we get the first brilliancy. Knight takes d4. So there's a lot going on. Let us discuss what is going on. What is the threat, first of all? Well, let's say they just waste a move. The threat is that you're going to take, and you're going to take this guy. So in the other positions, it was trapped, the queen that is. A6 at least was a little bit of a testing move, but you're still losing, right? Bishop takes, queen takes, bishop takes. At the end of the day, you're down a rook. So essentially, white is threatening knight takes. This knight is pinned. So after knight takes, bishop takes, he will be winning. And after f6, even though it is the best move, you would get this position where you would be more than pleased. Up a pawn, black's king is out in the open, bad stuff will happen. So in the game, we get bishop takes d4. Does Andreykin know his stuff? He does. Brilliancy number 2, queen takes d4. This is a queen sack. Why does it work? Not because you win the queen back, because you have mate in 2. Knight f6, king f8, bishop h6. Brutal. There's a king's gambit mate like this with the knight on f6 and the bishop on h6 that we reviewed in a couple videos. Do you recollect? Okay, so we get bishop takes, queen takes, and Karyakin's like, okay, I don't want to get mated. I'm going to castle. But he still gets mated in 5. We get knight to f6 check. The king has to move. If king g7 again, you hit him with the double check. You hit him with the mate. So he goes king h8. We get knight to g4, and Karyakin just resigns because if he goes here, it's mate in 1. The only other move is f6. If takes king g8, again, it's checkmate. And if rook takes, queen takes, king moves, and he got mated. So yeah, these people are big names in chess, and they all lost within 10 moves. Which one was your favorite? I think this one was my favorite because it was like a game. It wasn't so... Actually, well, the first one... Which one was my favorite? Number 1, I think, was the most beautiful, but this was my favorite. I don't know if that makes sense. But comment down below which one your favorite was. And yeah, thank you as always for watching. Have a great day. Boom.